Hi, my name is Lily Lumley. I'm a 7th grader at Blevins Middle School. Have you ever wondered the types of wildlife near your house or your school? Do you think about why your favorite open space is there and how it might be keeping your home or school safe? Well, we have. We are a group of 25 7th graders, all out of 6 different science classes that Miss Peterson teaches at Blevins Middle School. We wonder about what types of wildlife frequented the area around our school and neighborhood. From this question, Miss Peters showed us some of the data that our trail cameras located in Red Fox Meadows has collected for the past year and a half. I personally live by Red Fox Meadows, and I would love to learn more using the cameras about what wildlife is down there. The trail camera has collected photo evidence of a fox, deer, squirrel, raccoon, and geese. This area is heavily used by people and their dogs, which, if some people are unfamiliar with the causes of floods, they could get seriously injured. We then were shown some of the photo data collected by 7 other schools in our district. We saw a very wide variation of wildlife and human activity when comparing the data from the different cameras. We then noticed that the cameras are located mostly in the northwest parts of Fort Collins. We started wondering about the drainage basins that these cameras are located in. We saw the data that we are getting from these areas, but wondered about the wildlife and human usage in the other 6 drainage basins that do not currently have wildlife cameras. The city has purchased land in known floodplains and turned those areas into natural or wildlife areas. From our research, this was done for 2 main reasons. One reason was to make it so that buildings could not be built in these areas that are known to flood. The other main reason was so that the area could act as a catching area.
Hi, I'm Violet Clarkley, and I go to Blevins Middle School. We want to focus on all 12 drainage basins and collect data during normal conditions as well as flood events. We are choosing to focus especially the Cache La Poudre, Box Elder, Old Town, Fox Meadows, and Fossil Creek drainage basins. We are tied to these drainage basins because we live and go to school in the city of Fort Collins. We want to know how these areas are being used by people and wildlife during everyday conditions and flood events. We are used to these wildlife areas around the city and want to know if they are effective at mitigating floods during flood events, or if there are ways in these areas can be improved to reduce the risk of flood in Fort Collins.
I'm Blake Agnew and I go to Blevins Middle School. We've chosen to address flooding in the city of Fort Collins. We first conducted a few outside building inventories and found that, for the most part, our building does not have any flooding concerns. Then we started thinking about how many of us did not know much about flooding and what we need to do to be prepared. We sent out a survey to our 7th grade class asking if they knew about flooding and if their family had an emergency preparedness kit and what to do if there was an emergency like a flood. Me personally, I didn't know what to do if I was in this situation. And then from this information, we decided to hold a series of talks where students from Blevins and their families could come and learn about flooding and other natural disasters that happen in Fort Collins. These questions lead us to wonder about the drainage basins, so we decided as a group to change our focus for this year. Keep the work we did for night talks to use next year to focus on the bigger question first. What happens to natural areas around our school, our neighborhoods, and our city before and during the flood event? Because we felt this would change the way we went about giving our evening talk if we could answer this question.
The city of Fort Collins has come up with many rules about what we can build, where, and how when it comes to flooding. And we researched these rules. We learned about the 1997 flood that took place in Fort Collins as well as the 2013 flood. We found that the city of Fort Collins has put a lot of effort into flood mitigation and that they have partnered with the Federal Emergency Management Agency to make Fort Collins more flood safe. We learned more about wildlife cameras and their use for the project that a few other schools in our district are working on with the Rocky Mountain Cat Conservation and Colorado State University. Once we landed on our final final question about what happens to the natural areas around Fort Collins before, during, and after a flood event. We made a list of people and questions that we wanted Miss Peterson to ask. First, we made sure that our principal, Miss Wagner, was on board with our new project proposal. Miss Wagner was excited for us to be combining projects, that we were willing to look at the bigger picture, our community of Fort Collins. Then Miss Peterson consulted with the science coordinator for our school district, Miss Grissom. She helped us refine our question and gave us more people to contact. The Rocky Mountain Cat Conservation was asked if they were willing to let us use the wildlife cameras that are already set up. They were. We also had our teacher contact Dee Wright at CSU to see if they would be willing to help us monitor cameras. Program manager with Earth Force, who helps sponsor this challenge. He helps give us advice for who to contact and focus our questions even further. Then we had Miss Peterson contact Marcia Helms Robinson, who is the floodplains administrator for the city of Fort Collins. Marcia helped us a lot. She was enthusiastic about our idea, gave us suggestions, and told Miss Peterson about the permits that we would need to place wildlife cameras in the floodplains.
We're proposing wildlife cameras in the Cache Lapooter, Cooper Slough, Box Elder, Old Town, McKellen's, and Fossil Creek drainage basin. We would have data from all 12 of the drainage basins in Fort Collins before, during, and after flood events. This would allow us and the city of Fort Collins to know if the current flood drainage systems are working the way that they should and if they need to be any changes to the current strategies.
Good flood mitigation looks like when water gets into a floodplain, then either the water will soak into the soil or evaporate up and turn into rainwater. But when neither of those happen, then it fills up and it will go onto roads, pathways, sidewalks, everything, and then get into houses and start flooding places.
We would like to add the wildlife cameras that can be accessible through Wi-Fi and that are able to be triggered remotely. This would allow for data to be gathered with the camera and triggered by movement and real-life time triggering. We will need to go out to the drainage basin that do not currently have cameras and find the best area to place a camera.
This would be a project that impacts our students, our school, our watershed, our city. This project can impact the whole city of Fort Collins. It may also have the ability to reach more people and policymakers depending on what we find. We cannot do this project by ourselves. We will need the help of our teacher, RMCC, CSU, the City of Fort Collins, and the Rocky Mountain Environmental Challenge to make all of this happen. With the help of the people just mentioned, we can see this project affecting over 165,000 people.
This project is going to let us know the current flood mitigations are working in the 12 drainage basins in the city of Fort Collins. From this, we will be able to help suggest changes to the current system if needed, or we will see that these things are working the way that they should. This will help us know that our community has good flood mitigation strategies and in a place, which means that our community and wildlife is safe.
If our dreams are reality, we will need $1,588.97 in funding. We are hoping that some of the funding would come from the Rocky Mountain Environmental Challenge. There will also be in-kind donations from RMCC and our science class. We will need to go out to the drainage basins that do not currently have cameras and find the best area to place a camera with representatives from RMCC, CSU, in the city of Fort Collins. Once we have placement sites in mind, we will fill out the permit paperwork of the city to place the cameras. We will then purchase and place the cameras. We will need cooperation from RMCC, CSU, the city of Fort Collins. Along with the funding that will make this happen, we will start finding placement for wildlife cameras in late April and hope to have them placed by the end of August 2019.
We love the community we live in and we want to have a positive impact on it. We asked the question, what happened to the natural areas around our school, our neighborhoods, and the city before and during the flood event? Having cameras in all 12 of Fort Collins drainage basins would help us answer this question. It would then help us and the city change anything we needed, making our community safer and more prepared for future flooding events.